Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Thursday, so we have to talk about the Acolyte, so let's jump right into it. Alright, so first off, there's going to be spoilers. You can't talk about this series without kind of spoiling it, so this is going to be an all-out spoiler review of the final episode of the season. So if you haven't watched it yet, go ahead and watch it, then come back to this channel unless you don't mind the spoilers. Now, first off, let me talk to you about Quaimar because I hate saying that name over and over again. But they also refer to him as the Stranger, so that's kind of going to be what we'll call him for the sake of this video. So we open up the episode with the Stranger seeing that Osha has put on the mask. Osha has become possessed by this mask. She is seeing something that he don't get to see. Well, he struggles to get this mask off, and you can kind of see that he's a little bit afraid. So what ends up happening is the Stranger gets the mask off of her. He asks her what she has seen. And she tells him she saw May kill Sol without a lightsaber. Now, the Stranger's kind of happy about this because to him this means that he has succeeded. That she has succeeded. That she can do this. His Acolyte is real. So, he's happy about this. He says he's going to go and find her. Where is she? Well, Osha isn't ready to give that information out yet. So, she says they either go together or they don't go at all. So, then they proceed to go ahead and leave, with her not really telling him where they are going. Ultimately, this results in someone watching, and we get a glimpse of who is watching them. And it is none other than Darth Plagueis. Let me tell you the tragedy of Darth Plagueis. Now, this is actually very interesting that Darth Plagueis is watching them, although this is the only time in this episode we get to see him, which I think is a little bit of a loss. However, it's a great thing because we at least know now that he exists during this time. This is before Palpatine is born, so Palpatine is not even one of his apprentices yet. He's had multiple apprentices over the period of time, and we know that he had to have learned how to create life from somewhere. This doesn't change anything about Anakin's past because Anakin is a virgin to the Force, but Anakin is one of the only virgins in the Force that we actually know as a person. Most virgins creations that we've seen in Star Wars are places. They're places that have some sort of Force power. For example, a lot of people are saying the cave that Yoda sends Luke Skywalker in is a virgin in the Force. And then you also have the cave that Rey goes into. That is also considered to be a virgin in the Force. Now, that's important because both of those caves are places. And we see the twins being created through some sort of Force power. Now, obviously, this is kind of where our Darth Plagueis is going to get the idea to do this. And we know that in Legends, which is the only place he's ever appeared up until now, other than being mentioned in the prequel trilogy, that essentially, he's going to go through several attempts at creating life before he actually succeeds. And then we know that eventually he succeeds and he tells this secret to his apprentice, who then kills him and ultimately becomes Palpatine. Palpatine then uses this in the sequel trilogy, which is also something that's based on Legends. He clones himself to get himself to come back to life. So even that is all from Legends. So a lot of people saying that this kind of breaks Star Wars. It doesn't really break Star Wars. They're actually fans that are taking things that they like from Legends and putting them in canon, making sure that the Legends parts that were most popular and most amazing are in canon. Now, that being said, there are some things I don't want in canon, like Luke with 2 U's. And if you don't know, Luke with 2 U's was a clone of Luke Skywalker, an evil clone of Luke Skywalker, who actually was created, I think, from his hand. That's right, from his hand. And then you also have the scene where Chewbacca dies, saving the rest of them by holding up an entire planet. Some things in Legends don't deserve to be canon, at least in my opinion. But it's nice to see that they brought back Plagueis and are making him actually canon. Alright, so then we see where all of a sudden Soul is chasing after May, who has made her escape. May escapes in one of the ships, and he proceeds to go after her. Where they are going, we don't know, but surprise, 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 they end up going back to the planet where it all began. So once more, we find ourselves on the witch planet, and we see that he is chasing after her in here. Meanwhile, Osha is leading the stranger to this planet. They get there and she says, we need to get this elevator working. To which he says, are you sure that's the only way in? And vanishes. Just vanishes. Vanishes quicker than Bird in the series soap. That's right, he's just gone. And this is one of the powers that he now apparently has, that Jedis or Siths can apparently do. This has happened in canon a few times, I believe. But anyway, we get to see him use this power where he's just gone. And then all of a sudden, she gets the elevator to work. She goes in, but by the time she really goes in, all the stuff has begun to happen. Saul is in the middle of the fight with the stranger, and it's an epic fight. Although I do have to say, some of the scenes looked a bit Matrix-y to me, and that's not a bad thing. I didn't expect to see a lot of Matrix work in the film or in the series, but we did get to see it, and that's really cool. It actually worked for the fight scene they had. And the fight scene was pretty epic. Now, he suddenly stops fighting because May has found Osha. And Osha and May kind of talk, and she tells her she's lied to. May then goes down and starts to talk to Soul. So, meanwhile, the stranger's sort of sitting back, chilling out. He's not ready to fight anymore. And why not? He's watching all this and listening. And what happens is that May orders Soul to confess to what he did. Right about the time he confesses, we see someone pick up the lightsaber. This is Osha. She hears him confess that he did in fact kill her parents. Now, this is crazy because then we see the anger in her eyes. We see her ask if this is true. He says, yes, it is, and is trying to tell her he loves her. But before he can tell her that, the lightsaber bleeds. It's the first time we actually get to see this in live action. We've seen it in video games and we've seen it in animation, but we've never actually seen it in live action before, and it looks really cool. Now, the thing of it is that we get to see her debate whether or not to use the lightsaber, but then she proceeds to force choke him before he could tell her he loves her, that he did all this for her. Now, this is cool because when they turn around, the stranger isn't there. He no longer needs to be there. She force chokes Saul to death. Saul is dead and he's out of the picture, and Osha knows that her sister isn't going to help her. But her sister ultimately does try to help her. She says, I'll show you how to escape. We can't stay here. I want you to succeed. I want you to be who you're trying to be. So she takes her and they escape the same way that May apparently escaped all those years ago. And that is really cool as well, because we get to see how she made her escape from the fire. Now, the really cool thing here is that she shows her where she went to afterwards, only she doesn't tell her how she met the stranger or how she became his potential acolyte. Now, the stranger shows back up, and Osha agrees to be his acolyte if he will let May go. And he decides to do this. So he proceeds to erase May's memory, something that we have seen in Legends before. We actually saw this with Darth Revan. Revan had lost his memory and became a blank slate where they could have been a good guy or a bad guy. And Revan ultimately decided to do what Revan does, and I won't spoil that if you haven't read those Legends novels or anything. They are really good. Revan is one of the people that people talk about often. Well, then you know that the characters of Osha and May are based on the character of Darth Kree. Now, I won't go into Darth Kree very much, but they are sort of based on that character, which is pretty cool also. Now, the thing about this is that May is given this blank slate. She is then rescued by the Jedi. Now, wait, you're like, what? Okay, so while this is going on, Vanestra Rho comes in with a group of Jedi to save the day. She finds Saul dead. She knows what she has to do. She sends the people out to look. They couldn't have gotten far. They find May. They go back. She takes May, knowing that May has lost her memories, back to the council. Well, the Senate that was earlier in the episode talking to her really does want to kind of look after the Jedi, wants to kind of be part of that, wants to try to turn them more into what eventually Palpatine would do, that would turn the Senate into the Empire. So, of course, they don't want that. They don't know that all of this is going to happen really yet, but they know they don't want the Senate involved. Only now, with this murder taking place, she has to lie to the Senate, tell them that Saul acted alone. And Saul acted alone. He murdered all of his friends, and he was the one that did this. So now she has blamed everything on Saul. And she goes in and tells May that she's going to help her. Meanwhile, we see the stranger talking to Osha. And they're not really talking. They're just kind of looking out into the sunset. And we know that he now has his acolyte. We don't get to see Darth Plagueis, as I said earlier, but we know he's probably there looking as well. Then the series ends with one of the biggest little cliffhangers I've ever seen. Literally, little cliffhanger. We see two green ears, and we see that Banestra Rose is walking into a room, and she tells Master Yoda, we have to talk. So that is kind of what's going on in the series thus far. Now, I think it's really cool that they did it this way. I think it's a lot of fun. I think that the series deserves a part 2. It deserves a season 2. But whether or not it will actually get that remains to be seen. But the series doesn't necessarily need that. The series can move on in the form of books or in the form of something else. We could even get this in a movie form at some point. We could get a sequel to this that would touch on what Darth Plagueis did here, on how Darth Plagueis actually proceeds to set forth his plan. Although if they do go to series for a second season, I do think that we will get to see more of Banestra Rose, we will get to see more of Darth Plagueis, and we will definitely get to see the Stranger and Osha. But May is going to know about her sister all over again. That's the thing. They erased 15 years of this poor girl's life. She doesn't even remember she has a sister, but should they go to the second season, she'll find out rather quick. Now, that's where I'm going to leave it off to you guys, because I really thought this episode was great. I thought that it delivered in the final couple of moments of the episode, at least. Now, earlier on in the episode, if you had asked me, I'd have said I wanted more action, and by about halfway through this episode, we got nothing but action. So once that started kicking in, it definitely held my attention, and I think they really nailed the final of this season. So I want to hear from you guys. Do you think that this was a good final to the season? Do you think that this deserves to have a season 2? As always, we want to know what you guys think, so make sure you're leaving us that comment in the comment box below, letting us know what you think. Also, don't forget to share this video with all of your friends. They're definitely going to want to be a part of this conversation as well. Don't forget to hit that like button. It's free, it helps the channel, and we really do appreciate it. Then Miko says we need more subscribers, and look at this face. You don't want to disappoint Miko, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell while you're down there so you don't miss a single video we do. And friends, at the end of the day, I know it, you know it, and Miko knows it. Fandom is family.